Hello everybody, how's it all going? Well, it's been a little while since my last video. If you keep up with my videos, you'll definitely know that. But yeah, it's been an interesting year, basically. Uh, yeah, full of adventures that I definitely didn't expect. That's just an understatement in reality. Heck, I've been wanting to do a little more of these, and I just haven't really had the time or the setup really to do it. But now that I'm back over here, if you look at my previous videos, you'll see that I'm probably in the same room. At least it looks very similar, and that's because it is the same room. With that being said, I'm just going to dive on into the actual content here. This video right here is going to be about, well, I guess I'm going to title it Wi-Fi Expansion. There's some problems with Wi-Fi nowadays. I mean, it's usually not too much of a problem if it's just you at your house and a couple other people, or devices, I should say, because one person can have a phone, an iPod, an iPad, so it's like 3 devices from one person connecting to your Wi-Fi. So, yeah, it can get pretty interesting in terms of all the spectrum and all the devices trying to chitter-chat to each other over the airwaves. Basically, there's a big problem when you go to big events such as CES, which is happening, well, as right now, as of this recording anyways, some cool stuff that's happening relating to devices being shown about all the up-and-coming technology in terms of the next big thing, at least that they would hope to be, so they can make boatloads of money from it. At least that's what anybody wants to do, is make money off their product that they spend all this time and effort into creating. When you're at an event like this and at CES, there's tons of Wi-Fi's available in the area, and usually you probably want to take pictures, update all your social networking buddies, and things of that nature about what you're doing. You know, there's tons of people that are reporting about stuff to businesses, to companies that they're working for, so they all want to be able to connect to the Wi-Fi as well to be able to get that information back to the hub, hopefully in a timely fashion. But that's the biggest problem right there. You have all these people trying to connect to the Wi-Fi at once, and you just have a ton of commotion and chaos as all these devices are trying to communicate to each other over these airwaves, and they just have nothing but problems connecting. And if you do connect, it's as slow as crap because so many other people are connecting. I don't know if you know much about Wi-Fi, but you know, most Wi-Fis you have nowadays, at least if you've had your laptop for 5 years or so, it probably uses wireless G, and that uses the old 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. Well, I shouldn't say old, I mean, it's still just as good, but there's just so many devices on that bandwidth allocation. More recently, though, and I say this in the past couple years, they've had a 5 gigahertz that they've been experimenting with in terms of Wi-Fi. Wireless N can utilize 5 gigahertz of the bandwidth easily enough. If you have all the clients that are connecting conform to that specification, they will all be able to communicate over the 5 gigahertz band, which will alleviate some of the stress over the 2.4 gigahertz band. And even that is getting a bit congested, especially at events like CES. So the FCC is proposing to add even more bandwidth to the 5 gigahertz band allocatable to the unlicensed spectrum of the Wi-Fi usage. I know that was definitely a mouthful, but if you're unfamiliar with the FCC and how they allocate their bandwidth, it's basically in terms of you have all this bandwidth out there, the FCC goes through it and they give certain people license access to it. In some cases, they bid it off to the highest bidder, and this is what happened a while back in terms of wireless carriers, because they all want their bandwidth too, because the more bandwidth they have, the less congestion they have to worry about, so the more services they can provide to you without having to give you data caps and all that sort of nonsense. So yeah, the FCC's job is trying to make sure all these devices out there that are communicating with each other, making sure that they can communicate without interfering with each other. It was essentially the whole point of the main point of the FCC, I should say. Yeah, so there was tons of other devices already communicating on these bands that were licensed probably even before Wi-Fi was even a technology. For one example is amateur radio. There's a ton of awesome stuff going on in that. A lot of it's related to emergency communications, but there's also some dabbling in new technologies and being able to test them on spectrum in a real life scenario. Well, to me, it's just a testing service. I mean, the emergency communication is a huge part of it as well. I think that it's very awesome. Very cool that they're doing stuff like that because, well, anyways, I'm getting off subject here, but that's another cool thing. If you don't know much about amateur radio, I think it's something you might want to look into. You also have satellites and things like that communicating over these bands. So you satellites up in the air communicating whatever information they are communicating back down to the Earth station. In some cases it's temperature, in some cases it's just pictures, in other cases it's just acting as a relay as somebody beams information up to the satellite, and the satellite will beam that information down to another satellite location that's probably pretty dang far away from the original source of it. Or in terms of TV, I don't believe they use 5 gigahertz for your direct TV or those type of services, but that's another potential use of this spectrum. And there's a lot of military and governmental uses of this bandwidth as well. So I'm not sure how much of the 5 gigahertz band is being used. I mean, that's for more short-term communications or direct line of sight of communications. So that's why the FCC is kind of okay with putting Wi-Fi as an unlicensed use. I mean, Wi-Fi operates at a very low power spectrum, because if you walk down the street, you can barely communicate back to your Wi-Fi hotspot. That is why the FCC is pretty lenient on what spectrum they allocate for this, because the higher power stuff will just go out and completely wash out any of this Wi-Fi communication in terms of these point-to-point connections, because most of the 5 gigahertz band, at least from my understanding, is point-to-point communications. So generally speaking, if you have tons of low-powered Wi-Fi devices communicating on the same band, it's not going to interfere with these point-to-point communications that are much higher powered usually. I think this is a win-win for all of us as individuals, because, well, we are all as individuals becoming increasingly reliant, and even as groups, I should say, becoming increasingly reliant on these technologies to communicate our information back to whatever hub we want to communicate it back to. Whether that hub be for work, as you're trying to report information about what you're doing off-site back to work, or whether it be you out on an event such as CES, trying to post back all of the information that you think is interesting back to all your social buddies on the appropriate social hub that you're wanting to post to about whatever. So yeah, and then the latter one is one I definitely view a big part of the internet currently being all about. That's basically just the fact that you being part of a social group, you want to get your information out there. You have ideals, you have interests, you have things that you are passionate about that you want to communicate to others about, in the hopes that you'll get feedback from them to maybe even improve your outlook or your goals of what you're trying to do. So yeah, anyways, that's the end of this little video here. I think it's a little longer than I originally intended, but hey, there you go. Just tell me what you think of these videos. If you liked them, give them a thumbs up. I mean, what's wrong with giving a thumbs up, or at least communicating what you didn't like about the video? Because heck, I'm just trying to make some good videos for all of you to view, and if you want to see me improve my videos, then why not communicate some constructive feedback to me? Hey, up to you, whatever, I don't really care. Yeah, with that being said, peace out, and I hope you all are having a wonderful, wonderful new year, this 2013, you're live and ready to rock and roll. I hope you all made some cool, interesting New Year resolutions so that you may do some awesome things with this year. I mean, goal setting is definitely something that is, well, something should be pretty high on your priority list. It's kind of funny because a priority list essentially is a goal list. Anyways, yeah. But with that being said, peace out again, and I'll see you all later.